Now, today I'm going to walk you through 3 core elements. I want to talk to you about how the industry is different this year compared to last year. I also want to talk to you about what tactics you should be employing. But most importantly, I want to walk you through some real-life case studies. I want you to see what it looks like when you apply industry knowledge and tactics simultaneously. Because if you can see it and visualize it and communicate it to your teams in this way, you'll be significantly more likely to be able to achieve it. Now, over the last few years, I've worked in SEO and PR agencies, as well as in-house, and on the most bizarre range of clients. Anything from pet insurance through to music. I've done some travel, I've done ticketing. And what I was thinking about when I was prepping for MozCon is, what is that one key factor that is common no matter what position you hold, no matter what industry you're in? What is that one factor that's common in content marketing today? Unfortunately, it's that the game is getting harder. There is no other way to say it, and it's quite largely because everyone is trying to keep people on their property, and Google's no different. They've been doing it for ages. Just the other day, I Googled this band, 311, and I was scanning through all the rich content. I was like, wow, how much search has changed? And then I got this eerie feeling. It's like, what's missing? What's wrong? And then it hit me when I got to the bottom of the first page, when I saw the first e-commerce result, and it was for Amazon. And I just thought, oh my goodness, not only is everyone trying to trap you onto their properties, but if you want to get any space, you have to compete with Amazon. Yeah, this game's really getting tough. And what's more, publishers are trying to keep you on their pages too. And it's understandable. Look what happened with the latest mobile update. Some of the biggest publications in the world lost over 20% of their traffic. And let's not forget that the last 3 years are littered with publishers that just didn't make it through Panda and all the other updates. So how are they responding? Well, every year in my agency, we have SEO PR campaigns and we have traditional PR campaigns. And what I try and do is look at the traditional PR campaigns and just work out how many natural links do you build. You know, when you're doing normal PR, how many links, if you get 100 pieces of coverage, do you naturally get? Well, the hard and fast truth is that we're getting 30% less outbound links naturally. And further to that, we're getting 20% reduction in referencing and citations. And this is even happening in the technology and business media, who have always been my go-to. They've been so good at linking out and referencing. But it's the publisher's way of coping with the environment that's changing around them. Furthermore, when I'm speaking to some of the biggest editors, they're striking some big deals with the ad agencies. Ad agencies are buying up space, collaborating with the publications to make and create content. And what this means is that it's harder for us to sell our content. It's harder for us to place bylines, because why would a publication give you space for something when somebody else is willing to pay for it? And then finally, one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing as a PR person is that there's a reduction in the impact of media. At Dynamo, we do loads of PR to fund Kickstarter campaigns, which is really fun. You know, you can get press coverage and you see the total go up instantaneously. It's a really fun way to do PR and see the impact of it. But a year ago, we'd get 1 or 2 articles on TechCrunch or Engadget, and you would just see the funding titles soar. And now, we're having to line up 8 or 9 articles to go live sequentially to have the same impact that 1 or 2 articles had a year ago. This is a drastically different landscape. So what's really important now is focusing on how we get better. Well, I would argue that in this day and age, tools are no longer a luxury. You have to have the best toolbox you can get, and you need to invest time doing it. But beware, it is a rabbit hole. You have to test every single one. And I do this regularly. So I've worked with my team to find the best media database, and the best ones that I've found is Gorkana and My Media Info. My Media Info focuses on the US data. Gorkana will give you all the details, phone numbers, email addresses for UK media. But none of these are perfect. And you need to be aware of that. You will look at these systems and you will see flaws. What you're looking for is the least flawed system. Secondly, you want to get some kind of paid-for Harrow, because Harrow is oversubscribed, and I use Response Source. It's pretty cheap, but it's very UK-focused. But let's remember that most publications are now global, and if they're not global, they have a global influence. So getting coverage through using a UK-based Harrow-type system is going to be beneficial. But there's a side benefit here. When you're getting all these inquiries through, you'll get a very good idea of what it is media are looking for. For example, if you're signed up to consumer tech right now on Response Source, your inbox would be flooded with Christmas content requests. Well, how many of you have got your Christmas content sorted? How many of you are selling your Christmas content right now? Well, I'm telling you, if you haven't done it by the end of August, it's pretty much over and done with. Finally, you need to have a good CRM. We use BuzzStream. Pick whichever way you want to use it. I've got people using Salesforce as well. And last but not least, I want to tell you about my new favorite friend, Yesware. Because when you've got a team who are on the phone all day, every day, sending 30, 40 emails within a couple of hours, and then they're not seeing coverage straight away because media are moving slower, what happens? They take their foot off the gas. They're getting demotivated. If you've got Yesware on your email system, what you will see is how they're opening, when your emails are getting opened, when people are looking at it, and it's incredibly motivating. And you will see, if you compare the email and phone metrics of your team in the morning to the evening, when they're using Yesware and when they're not, that they will keep the pace up better than ever before. And pace is important because you have to hit these things with velocity. Now, there's been this trend over the last sort of maybe 10, 12 years to segment your PR efforts regionally. And this makes sense. You know, don't spend too much trying to get everyone to collaborate. And I'm not saying that you won't always have to have some element of your campaigns that are regionally focused. But if you're trying to compete in a really competitive landscape, doesn't it make sense to be pushing something from every corner of the globe with every single team you have? Wherever possible, try and make your campaigns global ones. Make content that all your teams can get value out of promoting, because then you're getting more people pushing it. But beyond that, you need to make some new friends. Journalists, they hop everywhere. You know, I've got loads of friends who have gone from technology into business, and then from business into different areas of consumer. But where people stay is at your news agencies. And what you're seeing here are a list of the news agencies I use. Now, what they do is they function a lot like a news desk. So essentially, they'll generate news, they'll write copy, they'll put images in, and they'll send it out on their wires. Then the big media agents, the big publications, will pick what of that content they want to use and pay to publish it. So if you ever look at something like the LA Times and you see LA Times journalist or Daily Mail journalist, actually, it's come from a news agency. And people at news agencies inherently tend to stay longer. So if you want to make friends with anyone, make friends with your news agencies, because A, they want to be friendlier to you because they make money out of publishing your stories, and thirdly, because you're getting a wider spread. I guarantee you, if you get something on the Solent News Agency wire or the Southwest News Agency wire, you will get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of big coverage instantly, which means you're getting the power of their selling and their authority. But there has never been a time where storytelling hasn't been important in content marketing or PR. And now that is no less true. In fact, no story exists unless someone wants to listen. But trying to find the right story is hard. So one of my favorite things to do is just look at existing stories. This is an image of the Tower of London, and they did this incredible poppy exhibition last year, and everyone just wanted to talk about it, everyone. So why would I spend time thinking of a brand new story when there was already a story out there that everyone wanted to talk about? And I had a client that sold tickets specifically to this attraction, which I thought was kind of exciting. So I thought, right, okay, what are we going to do? We need the client to be at the center of this story, because if they're not, they're going to be cut out. So in order to put the client at the center of this story, what we did was we did some research that nobody else had done. We looked through our data and we just came up with something really simple. What are the top 10 global attractions? because we were pretty sure that the Poppy exhibition was going to make sure that the Tower of London was at the top. And it was. And then we got some fantastic coverage. Now, I have a principle. If something's worked once, there's a likelihood it's going to work twice, right? So I knew that selfies were still a really big subject that the media were always writing about. They were getting loads of search traffic from it. So I thought, okay, all right, let's look at that. Let's mix it with Instagram. And let's find out which attractions people are taking the most selfies at. Because they tag them, right? It's not that hard. So we got the top 10 global selfie locations. By the way, quite a few of them are in the US. And we went out and we got loads of coverage again with a very similar tactic. It was doing data-based work within a particular industry. Now, the reason I'm telling you to test this is that not all industries are lacking data. Not all industry journalists will be favorable towards it. So don't think that data is going to work for you every single time, but if it works for you once, definitely check if it's going to work twice. And if it works twice, certainly look at doing it a third time. And that's exactly what we did. We went onto YouTube and we thought, right, okay, how are we going to get data out of YouTube? So I bet people film their proposals. So we went onto YouTube and we found the top global locations that people get proposed at. Disneyland is at the very top of the list. Took this out to the media and we got some fantastic results again. But all of this was based on our manual research. And I appreciate that trying to work out what you should be researching, how to craft a story, is kind of tough. So what I would recommend you do is learn from your research companies. Work with them. They're doing research every single day. They know what works. They know what fails. They've seen what has sunk and what has flown. Ask them. It's to their advantage, because they're going to be able to tell you exactly what will work. So one of my biggest lessons this year was when I was working with Yelp. I was watching the team, and they were starting to do all these BuzzFeed-type articles. Every time there was a big TV show, something like the Great British Bake Off, they would come out with the top bakeries in Britain that you could go visit. Or if it was fireworks evening, what are the top 10 places that you can go watch fireworks? But that wasn't when I got my greatest insight. And it wasn't when we had the big comic display at comic book displays and we put out content about that. In fact, it wasn't when we made lists about anything for the first couple of months. But it was finally a couple of months down the line, I noticed that the phone was ringing. People were ringing us and saying, have you got content for X and Y event? How much easier would your life be if you were getting inbound inquiries? Well, we thought a hell of a lot easier. So we went and built the Yelp calendar. It was a printed calendar. We sent it out to all the journalists and it showed them all the dates that they should be aware of. Furthermore, it reminded them that we can give them content for it. Now, the Yelp calendar, I'm not going to lie, is pretty good. But you don't need that to know what dates are going to be exciting, what trends are going to be happening. I would actually argue that some of the best trends can be identified by looking at print media. Because if you go into a hairdresser's or a doctor's surgery and you've got those sort of 4 or 5 months worth of the same magazines and you flick through them, you'll very quickly identify that there are certain themes that aren't going away. There are certain structures that they cover every month. In fact, there's a bit of a running joke in the science community that the New Scientist only has one set of headlines and they rotate them all every year. Keep an eye out for it. The other thing I've been focusing on is Netflix. I never had a subscription until recently, but it shows you all the top trending shows. Well, things trend for quite a while on Netflix. That's a really good idea of what you should be making content about. And if you combine that with when you know a new show is going to launch, or a show with similar actors, suddenly you've got the basis for some really great content. Now, all of these things are going to help you. Undoubtedly, they're going to help you. But do you want to know the tactic that's going to trump all tactics, and I guarantee you will be the differentiator between those that win and those that lose categorically from now and for the next 2 years? It's going to be speed. Let me show you what I mean. Do you remember that dress? You do. It doesn't matter if it was blue or black or white and gold. What you remember is what an incredible success it was, right? Everyone wanted to be part of that story. Well, when we saw this, we had a client called Depop. Depop are a really cool app that allow you to sell and buy cool stuff. Well, this was a cool dress. They should be selling it. So we got up, we were like, right, okay, let's divide the team up. Part of the team, you need to go and look for where this dress is, you need to go and find it, double check that it's there. We sent one staff member off to get that dress, and then we sent the rest of the team calling through all the media houses saying, we're going to have that dress by this evening, we'll bring it round, you can do a photo shoot. This was executed with absolute and utter precision, and we got some absolutely brilliant coverage out of it. But the thing that made it completely and utterly possible is that nobody was asked to do more than one thing. If you want to execute well with speed, you need to divide your team up and they need one focus. And it is really tempting to give people more than one, but don't do it. You will not succeed. Now, I hear this a lot. People say to me, is it all about a good idea? Yeah, good ideas help. But do you know what's even harder than getting a good idea? Selling a good idea. Now, in February, my team came up with a really naughty and a really risky idea. And I really wanted to do something dangerous. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to really sell this to the client. So I'm going to sell it to you the same way I sold it to them. Sat them down and said, right, remember last year? We made that fake baby bath. It was a little miniature baby bath, and it was all to celebrate the royal baby birth. You know how we made a product page, and we put it up, and we PR'd it, and remember how great it was because we got some really awesome coverage? Okay, keep that thought in mind. Remember that feeling. I've been speaking to these guys, butlers in the buff. They run a business where they have naked butlers. Bear with me here. You know how your website looks like this? Well, I'd quite like it to look like this on Valentine's Day. Do you think we could sell naked butlers running you baths on your website? Now, this is a mock-up, what you're seeing here. But what's really important is that I mocked it up so that you can see exactly what it is I was thinking. He understood the framework within which we were going to promote and create this, and I linked it to something that had already been successful. And that meant he said, yes. Excellent, and we created the Butler and the Buff package. And this is what the website looked like on Valentine's Day. But I appreciate this isn't for everyone. We did get some really awesome coverage, but I had to pre-prepare the client. Not everybody is going to think it's such a brilliant idea. And there was this journalist at the Metro who was one of them, and she wrote a rather scathing article. But do you know what was really interesting? Because I'd pre-prepared the client that where they might get some bad press, he had already made his peace with it. So do you know what he saw when this article got published? He saw that he got a link from the Metro and he couldn't see past that. Now, what's really important here is that this was quick, cheap, and easy because we got all the images we needed from Butlers in the Buff. And those images were great. And that's also what made this story fly, was that the images were really strong. And you don't have to spend much time on Twitter looking at different journalist conversations with PRs to see that every single time they will ask for images. And when you look at this horrible story on the BBC, you can see why. Does anyone want to read that? No, it looks boring. If you get good images, you will significantly increase the success rate of your campaigns. And they don't have to be high quality. They don't have to be taken by a professional. You can take images on your iPhone, and that will be sufficient for media. In fact, HTC did that this year. They launched one of their new phones, and they took a whole load of product images. Can anybody spot what's wrong with this image? Let me help you. You know how I said you can take any media image with an iPhone? Well, you can unless you're taking a photo of a reflective surface that happens to be an Android device. Images are easy to do, but get a completely separate person to double check them for you, because otherwise you'll miss stuff like this and you'll end up like HTC with several pages of coverage, not about your new device, but about the fact that you're using iPhones to take your own product images. Now, it's one thing to do a really great PR campaign or content campaign or whatever we call them these days, but if you don't sell it back, you are not going to get repeated budget. And I have to say, having worked cross industries and worked both agency and in-house, this has been the greatest insight. So I'm going to show you how I do my quarterly reporting, because I think it's really important, because it gets people to trust you. It gets people to remember what you've done and to reinvest in you. So I always start with a really big, visually overwhelming sweep with logos and cuttings of everything we've done. And then I pull out really core sections. I want to pull out the text that the client read that made them feel something, that made them feel proud, that made them feel like they had done a good job, made them feel like their boss was going to read it and think, yeah, I did the right thing hiring this person. And then I pull out very core social bits. But this is where I see too many people go wrong. It's really easy to get big, big numbers with social, right? Now, unless you're being specifically targeted on social, don't put reams of social information into your reports. Nobody will look past them. A couple of key highlights is more than enough. But there are some people who are led on social popularity, some people who are led on ego, some people who like the association with brands, and there are some people who are volume-led. And in every report, if you have a way of listing out absolutely everything you have done, you will target those volume-based people too. But finally, think about how you actually order the report. What are you going to put first? Well, in this day and age, you might be doing PR, but your budget is coming from SEO. If your budget is coming from SEO, then your SEO metrics are at the very top of the report. And even if they're not the best metrics, even if you've done better in PR metrics than SEO metrics, those SEO metrics come first, because that's the person that's going to be signing off your next budget. Now I want to talk to you about building on success. Once you've had one thing go well, you just want to make sure that you can get the most out of it. And in fact, you feel safer with that idea. And this is something that happened this year as well. I was speaking to my client, and they said they were really struggling to hire German-speaking customer service staff. I was like, really? That's interesting. You know, maybe there's a business story there. I said, what's the name of your other German-speaking staff? And he said, Hans. It's like, Hans is in Hans and Gretel. Brilliant. Okay, we're going to go out with a story. Hans seeks Gretel, and we're going to put that job spec up on the website, and I am going to get you some coverage. And we did. And what was the client's response? And I'm sure you've had this in-house as well. That's brilliant, but I want 3 times the amount of coverage and links. Great. Okay, fine. I can do this. Because the way I was thinking about it was, right, we got several bits of coverage from doing 1 launch. Okay, well, what happens if we do 2 launches, and what if we mix it with ducks? Great. So we built a couple of extra pages on the website, and we said that we were looking for the best duckling to test our baths. And we put up the job spec, and we put up some fun facts about ducks, and we put out a national media advert. And we got some great coverage. And that was phase 1. 16 pieces of coverage, piece of print press, 9 links. Okay, we've already competed what we did with the last project. Well, then I called up Solent News. Remember I told you about the news agencies? They said, come on down. Come watch us adjudicate which ducklings are the best bath testers. Come get some photos. You can put them out on your wire, you can write a story, and you'll make money out of it. So they did. We put all the images into a Dropbox as well to make it super easy for journalists. And we got a whole load more coverage. In fact, we got 9 pieces, and we got another 10 links. Because you know what was quite interesting is that there were people that didn't cover it the first time, but when you keep hammering at a door, it often opens. Finally, meet Gilbert. Yes, Gilbert is the ugly duckling, and he did win the competition. Gilbert is owned by Gemma, and we announced this to the press in the final phase of our project. And what was the consequences? Well, ultimately, we ended up with 18 high links. That's in DynamoPR, that's links above DA of 30. 25 bits of coverage. Pretty impressive circulation figures for whatever they mean. But what occurred to me was that these were still a lower link ratio than I would expect. We had great on-site content. We had loads of places you could link to. And what I really wanted to do was build a campaign where it was really, really difficult for you to not link to us. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? It's product-based campaigns. Product-based campaigns are the main campaigns that it's almost completely impossible to write about without linking to the product. So in another conversation with the client, we got chatting about the color white. You know how hard it is to photograph white things? It's really hard. And that's why most e-commerce people that work with a lot of white products build everything in CGI. Everything. So if it's already built in CGI, then it's probably quite cheap to reskin it, right? So if I want to make new products, I can make them blue or green or bumpy or soft or big or small, because you've already paid the money to have those files built. Interesting. Now, when you start to think that a lot of people in this world don't know how to spell bathroom suites, and you combine that with CGI bathrooms, so CGI bathrooms, bathroom suites, what do you get? Chocolate bathroom, clearly. So we went out with this story. We decided that we'd build a microsite that said, okay, people don't know how to spell bathroom suites. This is the problem. We contacted the Literacy Society. We got them to comment on it. We got an incredible bathroom suite built. We worked with a chocolatier to tell us how many calories were in it, how long it would last. So we had all these incredible chocolate facts, so it became a food story. And then we wrote a letter from the CEO saying, why as a business are we doing this? So we had a business story. And then we launched it. We went out with phase 1. We did a whole load of embargo briefings. Because remember I said at the beginning, media isn't having the same level of impact as it used to have. So you have to tee things up. So we got a whole load of journalists lined up to cover it. We did embargo briefings. We did a launch event at an awesome chocolate restaurant. And then we went out with phase 2. And we took it out to the wider media. And then after phase 2, we took it out to trade and luxury, because they're interested in it too. And then after we did trade and luxury, we took it internationally. In fact, you probably saw it on the TV in the States a couple of times. After that, I was kind of annoyed, because the Daily Mail and the Mirror and the Independent had told me that it wasn't cool enough for them. It wasn't really their story. So I rang them up again. I was like, you realize the rest of the world has covered this? Are you really not going to cover it? Of course not. Phase 6, why not get some social and blogger outreach, right? You've got great visual content, so we did a couple of competitions. And finally, we were in phase 7. At the moment, the team is currently selling it in for Christmas gift guides. Every time there's a how to spend it or a chocolate-related story, we go out with it. We've been looking at marketing and business case studies, and every time there's an article related to literacy, do you know how boring those images are for the journalists to print? Not if you have a chocolate bathroom, they're not. So we're going out with it every opportunity we get. And there's a psychology behind this. Because if you get a whole load of links and coverage coming into one story, and then it goes dead, what do you think that tells Google? That it was relevant and it now isn't. But if you create a strategy where you're consistently building links into one of your assets, you're telling Google that all those other links are also probably still relevant. But it wasn't just the multiple phases that made the story work. We had multiple stories. You know, if you look at the press release, it was the world's most indulgent bathroom. We had how much it cost. That's cool. That's a big stat. We had how many calories. We had the fact that there was a literacy story in there. And we had the fact that somebody had launched a product. We even had extra content around literacy. So that meant if the journalist didn't bite, we could go out several times over with different angles until we won. And that's why we ended up getting over 126 links in a couple of weeks. The average DA of those sites was over 54. And furthermore, we didn't even count any links of a DA below 20. So I'm telling you there are more links out there, and we're continuously getting value from it. The game is getting harder. It's undoubtable. But if you get better at your imagery, at your reporting, and at scheduling your campaigns to go off in different sections, as well as getting faster at the way you sell and getting faster at the way you execute, you will be stronger. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was amazing. So much information. For a lot of people in this room, they've never reached out, they've never pitched a story, they don't have any PR people in their Rolodex. So when you first make your first contacts with news agencies, what are some tips for initiating that?
I like to always talk to people before I've locked a story down, because if anyone is getting involved in a story, they're more invested in it. So if you call them up and say, we've got an idea and we're thinking of doing this, would that work for you? Suddenly you're asking their opinion instead of just trying to push something on them, and then it becomes a two-way engagement process, and actually they become kind of excited. I mean, the news agency knew about our duck project for an incredibly long time.
Any tips for that very first email when it's absolutely cold, you don't know them at all, in order to get that response?
Yeah, don't email them, ring them.
Ring them.
Yeah, always ring people. It's much better, because even slight nuances of language can be misunderstood. And if you ring someone, you know exactly what their contentions are.
Interesting. So, obviously you pitch a lot. How often can you expect failure? And how much failure is okay when you're pitching these stories?
I don't think it's about failure. It's about doing so much and being so focused on the end goal that to a large extent you don't notice the failure until you're reflecting back on the campaign. So now and again I will go through my inbox and I'll be like, wow, I made 40 phone calls and sent 60 emails and I only got 30 pieces of coverage. I'm not massively unhappy with that. There's a whole load of variables that go into that, right? Firstly, you've got things like who is on holiday. Like right now, loads of the industry will be on holiday. Christmas, nobody works. Okay, so you're going to send triple the amount, so failure is proportional. And is it really failure? You know, with the duck story, or even with the chocolate bathroom story, do you know how many times I called the Mirror? Do you know how many times I called the Mail Online? Did I fail the first 3 times that they told me to go away? No. I succeeded the 4th time because of the first 3, so it's how you view failure.
So, okay, Lauren Rothering on Twitter, excellent question. She was asking about, you used a lot of photography examples. Do you find that people are more receptive to photos, or how often do like infographic things like charts and graphs work for you?
Which ones do you prefer to look at? When you're scanning through the front page of a major news site, what catches your eye? For me, it's going to be a cool, pretty picture. And so I would argue that that's how you make the decision, but the exact answer is actually probably photographs and video. Video is becoming even more important. If you've got video, you go to the very top of the pile. If you've got great images, probably second. If you don't have any, then you're really fighting the black hole of a journalist's inbox.
Let's talk about success metrics a lot. You put a lot of slides up about how many stories you got, how many links you got. Are those the primary success metrics that you're working with? What are you reporting to your client?
So this is really interesting. When I was SEO side, it was all about links and traffic. Now I'm sitting on the PR side, it's kind of bizarre because it can be anything. You know, a client comes to you and they say, I want to get in the Guardian. Okay, why? Because I do. No, why? Because that's where my readers are. Okay, well, will your readers click through from the Guardian? Because my experience is that readers never click through from the Guardian. And so you have to keep asking why and why and why. And sometimes they get upset. Not everyone thinks it's a good game. But at the end of the day, you need to work out what it is they're really looking for, and then they'll see the reason for whatever metrics that will actually help you measure that, whether you've achieved that. So we measure rankings, but for example, for bathrooms.com, we don't manage technical. I'm limited. So I can say that yes, rankings have moved, and that yes, we've contributed significantly, but I can't say that we contributed entirely to that. So I like to report on everything though. I measure absolutely everything, but as I say, I always put the core metrics at the top and everything else below.
Lexi, they say when you give a speech, leave the audience wanting more. I want so much more right now. I want to learn. Basically, I just want to hire you. So thank you very much. Please give a hand for Lexi Mills.
Thank you very much.